He's essentially going through multiple stages of grief. He is in his denial stage. From the last episode where I spoke about this situation involving my friend, some of you seem to agree that I am an L friend because what I said came true. It wasn't a very difficult prophecy to predict. As I said, 50% of femboys are manipulative. The other 50% have severe depression. Not to mention, and by the way, I'm not trying to hate on people here when I say something like that, okay? If you remember, my friend's parents are traditional Christians. Well, the Christians that say they follow the beliefs of the religion but never really do. They try to control other people with their belief system instead of getting closer to Jesus, let's just say. That was bound to fail regardless. I still let it happen though. I still let my friend go through it despite me warning him multiple times. I guess that makes me a bad friend because I'm not trying to control what my friend does. He's a grown adult. All I can do is make a suggestion, and what he chooses to do is up to him. This episode of the Aku Anime is an update video to the last episode. I'll leave that video in the description if I'm not lazy. The denial phase is so bad that at this point, when he watched the video, he was like, Aku, you know, this whole time I wasn't into femboys. It was a meme. I just felt lonely. Listen, a lot of people are in this stage of denial as well. Let's address that first. There's a term that I heard years ago, and it's not popping into my head right now. I don't know how I forgot it. I don't really look into terminology about genders and sexuality as this plane flies over my house. Listen, worst timing. I'm not trying to be disrespectful, by the way. It's just not something I think about because I don't spend much time analyzing people. Let me Google this so I can get my point across. The word, if I say this term correctly, apparently the term is, according to Google, finsexual. It's somebody who is attracted to people who are feminine in nature, hence the word fin, F-I-N, female in nature, finsexual. Yeah, so listen, if you like feminine things, then this is what you are, according to LGBTQ plus A, B, C, D, E, F, G, L, M, N, O, P. So I think the way my friend feels right now, where he says like, oh, I was never really attracted, it was a meme, I think it's like a common feeling, let's say, right? He is claiming to be straight, but he likes feminine things. Maybe I'm tripping, but this nigga gay. I'm keep it real with you. Like, this nigga gay, this is gay as fuck, bro. This nigga gay. And look, that's perfectly okay if you're bi or gay, bro. But how you finna tell me you never liked this femboy guy who you were crying over when you were gonna move in with him? You see what people do when they in denial, bro? And don't get it twisted, anyone watching or listening. He knows I'm just being satirical and joking with him. He watches every episode, okay? And he doesn't mind if I talk about stuff like this. I do not have concerns about the loneliness part because, I kind of knew where this was going, and it may have flown over the head for some of you here when I said, where he said that he was just feeling lonely, right? A lot of people don't recognize their loneliness as a feeling. I'm one of those people. I never really feel lonely. Even when I talk to people for days, even when I don't talk to people for days or so, I don't feel lonely. The rare times I do feel that way, it's always something related to seeking a romantic relationship. I don't put relationships as a high priority in my needs for everyday life. So I can imagine people who do actively seek companionship. They feel more lonely than I do. But when you do get too lonely, you start attaching to individuals or start dating people who aren't really within your personal desires or preferences. You may not find yourself very compatible with someone, but you deal with it because you're too trapped into a relationship because you're either lonely or you overcommitted. Loneliness plays a huge part in how certain unfortunate conditions start, such as anxiety issues. Anxiety issues stemming from being disconnected from others, that communication is harder to do. I've been through that one myself. It can also make you feel depressed strictly because you do not have people you can rely on to be there for you. It's nice having people to talk to or listen to you and feeling that you have people you can rely on. When I mentioned that a lot of people don't recognize their loneliness, I mean in the case where they suppress their social needs by engaging in hobbies or activities that keep their mind busy. If you shove yourself into work or a video game or something else, you're too focused on that activity rather than thinking about, wow, I'm so lonely right now. I mean, I'm not saying those feelings can't still occur during those hobbies or activities, but it's less frequent because your mind is elsewhere. The good thing about life is that these things that may distract you can open an opportunity to meet people. But how can you meet people if you have social anxiety? How can you form a meaningful connection with someone when you've been so lonely and isolated for a long period of time? And maybe the word cycle is not the right word, but it does form something like that. This problematic encounter for many introverted and asocial individuals, you find that the people that you actually can form a relationship or friendship with, you can compromise, or rather you compromise what you should be okay with. But you should also consider compromising for each other. Let me explain. Look, I've been dating someone for quite a while now. I'm sure you guys have known that. That's why she's still on my Instagram the whole time. Usually you hear me talk about, like, I only been in relationships that these things come and go, but I've stuck by, right? And we're both very isolated people. When we first started dating and getting comfortable with each other, there were so many quirks and other things that we had to break out of. We had so many habits from just being to ourselves for so long that it hurt us at times. It was expected. So yeah, me, Aku, I like doing things by myself. I'm not a social person. She also is somebody who does everything alone, and she's not a social person. So how bad do you think our communication was? It was terrible at first, but it was fixable because we would make compromises for each other. Like, I knew she didn't like X, Y, and Z, and she knew I didn't like X, Y, and Z in return. So we had to make changes. The key thing here is how we knew how to make changes for each other despite our habits of being alone, how we're so used to being alone. That's something that becomes a huge struggle for people. I wasn't always like that. Catch me like 5 years ago, I would be too stubborn to make changes for someone. Maybe I just grew up. I don't know. I used to be like that with my friends too, just extremely stubborn when I would talk to them. Or if they would give me advice, I wouldn't listen. And I would have this I am who I am type of attitude. And that may be true. I am indeed who I am. But as I've grown older, I understand that to also let others be the way that they are and try to meet a middle ground. I could still be myself. They could still be themselves, but we got to meet in between. I still have standards, though, that I keep, which I will not compromise with certain people, even if I was lonely. But you have to think about it like this and really listen. You got to think, when you're lonely, you are technically seeking a sense of belonging, whether that be with someone or a group of people. For the best interest of you and your own happiness, who wants to have a belonging to a group of people who make you uncomfortable or aren't compatible or attractive to you? Get what I mean? Who wants that? Yeah, like if I'm lonely and need friends to be around, then I get brought into a friend group and they're all really mean, or I don't really like being around them, for my own sanity and not to rub their person and not to them to rub their personality onto me, I'd rather go back to being lonely for now. I'm saying don't settle for stuff that you shouldn't settle with just because you're lonely. It's funny because that same way of thinking where I'm just saying, yo, don't settle for certain people, don't settle for groups of people. That same way of thinking has gotten people to dislike me. It has gotten people to hate me. I've had people around me who were like vampires, just constantly draining my energy, or they were always negative and whiny about stuff. I just had to like disappear from them or cut things off. I'm sorry, but I can't stand people who are always in drama or are talking negative or saying extremely depressing things 90% of the time. I can't deal with people who aren't authentic to me at times. I feel like it makes me, you know what happens? It makes me feel negative and sad or angry because you're sad or angry and you're telling me about it and I care about you, you know? I guess you can say a flaw of mine is that other people's emotions can influence my own. That just shows how fragile I could be. But I digress. When the loneliness drops your standards and you begin to seek or form a relationship with someone who doesn't align with your orientations or preferences, it's not really completely fair to the other people. To the other person, I should say too. Yeah, if you're dating someone and you're not really authentic with them, how is it fair to them? Just because you're just with them because you're lonely, like you're not technically you're not genuinely attracted to the partner you have. And we live in a weird society where being single has a negative connotation, I should say stigma around it, right? People assume single people are always lonely or they have a bad personality. Hence why nobody's with them. Far from the truth. But some people feel that pressure of people assuming that they have a bad personality, so they decide to put themselves in a relationship to escape the societal pressure. When I mentioned that it's not fair for the other person, this is what I kind of mean about what my friend going like, oh, cool, it's just a prank, bro, and I'm straight actually. Yeah, but that may be true to him. He was just lonely. But think about the other person here. The guy or femboy he was thinking about moving in with. Like, are you seriously saying this whole time the relationship was inauthentic? That because you were lonely, you were willing to do this even though your heart was truly in another place? The femboy is already depressed, like severely depressed. So them knowing this, which I don't know if he told them this or not, but him knowing this is going to make him more depressed or upset. Do you guys see how being lonely can hurt others? It leads to confusion. You gotta form connections with people who truly align with your needs. These needs need to be mutual and safe for both parties mentally. If you ignore this, you are going to find yourself in a friendship or relationship that is boring or unrelatable. Don't be afraid to be alone. Don't be afraid to feel lonely and withstand it. We all have to learn how to be that way. There's a quote I saw on Forbes. I think it was, oh no, I might have to hit my Google search again. I think it was by Confucius. Confucius? Maybe, why am the word Pythagorean keeps popping in my head. I think it's by Confucius. Let me just go to my browser history. It was on Forbes. Okay, so it goes, the superior man is distressed by the limitations of his ability. He is not distressed by the fact that men do not recognize the ability he has. It's a powerful quote if you think about it. The way I interpret this for man and woman is that an individual must learn and overcome the internal conflict they have before going out and waiting for someone else to validate them, which emphasizes my point about being alone. Don't be afraid of being lonely. It doesn't have to be a straight negative feeling all the time, but it mostly is. Withstand it though, and build yourself to be a better man or woman. If you're too busy seeking others because you're lonely, you're waiting for external validation. External validation. It can be invalidation, right? The superior man is distressed by the limitations of his ability. He is not distressed by the fact that men do not recognize the ability he has. I want to say this too. Loneliness not only causes confusion, but guilt. It's an emotion that leads one to walk their way into situations that truly don't align with their beliefs or desires. This only leads to a temporary state of fulfillment. It may never be everlasting unless things are changed. It has to be authentic from the ground up. Let's leave it at that. Another short episode of the Aqua anime season, right? Why did I say season? I don't even know what season we're at right now, but according to Spotify, I put it at season 1, so we'll just count it as that. It's a new chapter in life anyway, as I say. Today's episode is also found on Spotify and YouTube, if you do not know about that. Watch the sun bleed. It's our time to go out while we watch the sun down. Watch the sun down. Watch the sun down. Watch the sun down, down, down. I got what I asked for, but I think it's never mine. We try to shine our own way, but the stars are not aligned. Laser on the heat, best bet you better hide. Said to do what's best, now my thoughts are on decline. Take a trip with me, we can share confessions. What's next for us? That's a loaded question. You go first, you have the best expressions. I'm looking up, now I see a dark sky heaven. Watch the sun bleed, it's our time to go out while we watch the sun down. Silent guy, forever peace, now there's no doubt. While we watch the sun down, fears or hopes are gone, we don't know what that's about. While we watch the sun